Hello and welcome to the first ever episode of Sweet Talking with Saint Diabetes. Technically the second ever. However, it was because of a recording mishap first time around. This is going to be the first recorded episode. It's going to be going up on YouTube. So first off, I want to say thank you to my guest Hound for coming on today. Hound, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself a little?
Hey, Hellhound here. Um, what way do you want me to say, like my name or something like that?
Well, Hellhound's just fine. Well, I will say this: Hellhound is a current veteran of the pack, and he was a former lieutenant. This is just a little bit of history on him. But yeah, just why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself? Like, what brought you to the pack in general? What do you like to do outside of the pack? Just tell us about you.
Alright, what brought me to the pack was, a group of friends of mine, and, basically they showed me the pack, and originally I kind of saw it as this giant meme Discord. I was kind of weird in the beginning, and then I kind of grew to love it, and eventually I wound up as a lieutenant through all the craziness that happened, and it's sort of become a family of sorts, and I enjoy interacting with the people there when I can, even though I've been inactive as late.
Well, I mean, I think that's a pretty typical story. It's just finding these funny memes online and just getting slowly absorbed into it. It's just, and then finding that there's actual genuine people behind making these stuff, and we just enjoy talking to each other. I mean, shit, that's kind of the reason why I started this, is just to get to know some of my fellow packmates better.
Yeah. Outside of the pack, I'm usually doing school shit or working at my job or playing video games or making them
Well,
or creating stuff.
So, how far along are you in school? Are you in like college, high school?
I just finished up my semester of college for business recently, and I'm now moving into transferring to Whitewater to learn computer science so I can learn how to code video games better and understand a bit more of the technical aspect.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's kind of important for the project you're working on. At least the project you keep posting on about in the pack, which I personally find very interesting from at least an artistic standpoint. And I guess we can just segue into that right now. Is why don't you tell us about your project? Because I've seen concept for it, and from what I understand, that's really where it is right now, is in the concept stage. But what I've seen is very interesting and very surreal, and I'd like to know more.
Alright, so the project name currently is Jump. That name might change, it might stay, I'm not certain. But as you said, it is pretty much in concept stage, and I don't really have much for it right now. But what I want to do with it is I kind of want to bring an experience that I haven't honestly seen many games do, where I want to do like exploring somebody struggling with depression in a very surreal way, and doing it via multiple choice, and kind of making it, I guess, sort of like a simulation of a prison in a way.
So it's taking the idea of living with depression and putting it in the abstract, like just trying to figure out just the general overall tone that would evoke that mood, or just going around this mindscape. Even, I guess, is from what I can tell from the animations you put up.
Yeah, that's sort of what I am trying to go for at the moment. It's really hard to, you know, verbally explain, in a sense, because it's all really more like metaphors, and kind of not a lot of it's supposed to be taken to a literal standpoint. It's more like interpretive.
It's these are representations of concepts rather than just like, oh, this monster is this monster. Basically,
Yeah.
it's very. I'm getting a very Silent Hill-esque vibe from the description you're giving me here.
Oh, definitely. I have been really inspired by things like Silent Hill, and with the more surreal aspect of my game, I'm really inspired by. I think it's called Yumi Nikki Dream Diary.
That would make a lot of sense.
I love the artwork of that. And there was also this YouTuber I watched called Jordan Under, and he's done very similar stuff. And I always really loved that weird, surreal, kind of sad, but tells a lot without saying much.
Oh, I mean that is one of the hallmarks of games for me is that it's an interactive medium, so you really don't have to have show or even say a lot with it. You can let the gameplay or the exploration speak for itself, which is why Yume Nikki is so loved. Is that it's literally just drops his character in a world and you just explore. If I'm correct.
Yeah, pretty much. It's pretty much like exploring somebody's dreams.
Hmm?
And I've always liked games and media that explores dreams because I find that stuff to be very interesting. And I always liked this very surreal nature of those kinds of things.
There's actually a game you might want to look into then that was I believe it was called LSD Dream Emulator for like the PlayStation 1. There's not a whole lot on it out there. I know there's a YouTuber I watch called Kid Icarus, and he does a lot of like old PlayStation reviews. He did a video on it that's more of a humorous take on it, but that one apparently was based on the creator's dream diary, where she would put the character in the dream, and it would follow very much dream logic. For example, like and I believe in a level you're put in a house, and if you touch any of the walls, you get transported to ancient Egypt or something, where it doesn't make a whole lot of sense in the literal sense, but in the abstract, it's very surreal. And of course, they're going for a dream-like experience because it was the dream simulator.
Yeah, I've heard of that game before, and I've seen a lot of it. I certainly wouldn't be going about it in that necessary way, but I do like a lot of the concepts that it does, and
yeah.
I love the visual style of it.
I mean, I don't think playing LSD Dream Simulator or Emulator wouldn't be a very good experience in general, just because it doesn't translate well into games. But the idea behind that you need to the idea behind it that it is just a surreal mindscape is just fascinating to me. And speaking of, have you ever played this game Psychonauts?
I actually have not.
That one I can imagine you would be able to pull a lot of really interesting concepts from, because the idea, and I'm sure you've heard of this, but for the viewers out there, is you are a psychic named Rasputin who I believe tricks the counselors into letting him be part of the psychic camp for free, and ends up being swindled himself into acting for the secret agency, where he goes into the minds of people who are, I believe, like are in an insane asylum to try to parse like why they're there or what their guilt is or something along that line. And in like the levels are very different, very distinct, and again very abstract, very I guess Dali-esque. Not so much the style you're going for, where it's the dark, nightmarish sort of vibe I'm getting, very Limbo-esque, but it seems like we might be able to pull something from there.
Oh yeah, that definitely sounds like I could get something from it. Let's see. Recently, I haven't been playing much to the style of the game I've been playing, but there's definitely lots of games I'm going to try and pull from in terms of concept-wise and idea-wise, just to get like more of a grasp of what I want to tell. And so I am.
Well, why don't you tell us? Yeah, why don't you tell us some of those games you've been playing lately? Because I'm always looking for something new myself.
I've been playing a lot of Slay the Spire recently.
Slay the Spire. Let me go ahead and look that up on Steam, because I've never heard of that before. Oh, Steam has to update.
Well, the best way I can explain it is it's a roguelike card game where there are 3 main levels so far right now, and it's basically like a dungeon crawler, but with cards.
Huh.
Each card does its own special ability. There's either attacks or defense, and this is a really simple explanation of it, but it's pretty much that, is going through level by level and getting more powerful with the more cards you put in or the less cards you put in.
So a bit like Hand of Fate, if I'm hearing this right?
I have not played that, but probably?
Because I know that one's kind of a roguelike card game, and that's what tipped me off here. But that's really the only thing I know about that when it comes to the roguelike card games. But that sounds interesting. What did you say the name was again?
Slay the Spire.
Slay the Spire. All right. I'll have to take a look at that one. In fact, if we're talking games, I actually found one the other day that reminded me a lot of your visual style, and I'm going to go ahead and link it to you in our talk show chat room that I was debriefing you in, the same one you put the playlist in. It's a game called Luca, and it might be something you'd look into in terms to visual style, but in terms of gameplay, it seems to be almost the exact opposite of what you're going for. It's a very much Dark Souls-esque hack and slash of a character going through a kind of nightmarish place, but what seems like with yours, you're going for a more narrative-driven adventure.
Oh yeah, that's definitely what I'm trying to do, is do a more narrative-driven. There's going to be a lot more dialogue, and it's a lot of concepts, so it's kind of hard to talk about for the most part, but what I have so far is kind of telling a story through the options the player chooses, and the player almost being their own enemy, in which the choices they make will either significantly harm themselves or help themselves, or sometimes there will be no indication of what their choice did.
Ooh. So, I mean, that would be very much, I guess, indicative or representative of depression. I can't really say I've truly experienced very deep depression myself, but there have been depressive episodes in my life where I guess I was put up to a choice where I had to make it, and I didn't know if it was the right one or the wrong one until much later. And there's a terror in that choice. There's a terror in that moment where you must choose. And that, if you can capture that feeling, I very much cannot wait to try this.
Yeah, I really hope to capture that feeling, because this is going to get a little personal, but when it came to my life, it was kind of easy to drive out the darkness, I guess, metaphorically speaking.
Yeah.
Because there have been a lot of times in my life where I've had to make very hard choices that were not easy to make, and I hope to really capture that feeling and true, almost terror of what if I make the wrong decision and what will be the results of that decision.
Now, with this game, are you attempting to include a sort of permadeath in a way, or where if you do make the wrong choice, you have to start from the beginning?
That's likely what's going to end up happening. Is if you make the wrong choice, you're gonna be shown the end, which is, well, I'm still figuring this part out, but it would be almost like the game has a literal ending when you die, where if you died in that instant, that's where the game ended. That's where the story ended because of that choice.
See, now that's reminding me of this one smaller indie game that I've personally played called not Off. It was One Shot, where this one plays a lot with what a game is. And in the lore of this game, you are kind of this omniscient force that actually has created this world within your literal computer. It's actually in your computer according to the lore of the game. And you are guiding this kind of cat character to reboot this world. And if you actually exit out of the game before the character can go to sleep and save, the world itself will be deleted. So I forgot what the original point was, but it provides a sort of weight and emphasis to your choice, basically. It provides a sort of permanence. And I'm wondering if you could be able to do something like that, where, say, for example, your character dies due to a choice they have made. Could you kind of lock, or at least soft lock, the player from starting again?
Maybe. I haven't really gotten into that yet.
Yeah. I know it's still in the very early concept stage, but I'm just trying to toss ideas out there and see if like anything sticks.
That might be something I do. It would more so depend on what that choice is and how they die, and what that's supposed to mean.
Ah, okay.
Maybe I'd soft lock them out of certain choices. Maybe they couldn't go to a certain area because they had made a choice previously. Because I feel like that'd be something really interesting, where to kind of emulate that sense of you have to make a hard choice and you can't really go back on that choice. You can't go like, well, I didn't want to do it, so now I'm gonna go back and not do it.
Yeah. Like, for example, in real life, say for example, you cut ties with a friend. It's going to be very hard to reconnect with that person, to reconnect with that friend. So in this case, I guess you could say it's symbolic of that in a way. You cut ties with a certain part of the game, so now you won't be able to access anything related to that in the future.
Yeah, certainly. With the game, maybe it's like, so currently I do have a technical ending, and I'm not sure if I'm keeping it in, but there is this first area, I like to call it, where the player decides to jump into the pit.
Yes, this is the animations I've seen. Yeah.
Yeah. Where they are not saved and they just fall into the spikes. And instead of dying, the player winds up in a very black pit with another character. And one of the very options they have is to rot there and die.
Oh, they can just choose that.
They can just choose that. They can just casually die there. And the character will rot there as the command says, and they will die, and that'll be the end of the game for that point. And then maybe when they either restart or respawn or however I do it, they wouldn't be able to make that choice again, or perhaps a certain area of the game would be locked off from that point on.
Oh, so now I think you're saying that choices in previous, even full playthroughs can affect future ones. Almost as if like a sort of new game plus sort of deal.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
now I'm starting to get that picture. I thought you were saying it was all going to be like all within one playthrough.
I'm not sure if that would be possible with the way I've set it up, but I'm still figuring it out in the long run. It's still very, very weird to talk about, because some parts where I'm like, well, I don't particularly know, but I think I have an idea here, and it's sort of like just figuring out what fits.
Yeah.
Would that fit with the rest of the things that I'm already trying to establish?
Okay, good. So you're already thinking about like what helps the tone of the game, what helps the atmosphere, rather than just tossing in everything that sounds cool. Because in my opinion, very minimalistic and very pared back experiences in any form of media are always a bit more impactful, because they always just focus around a central theme. For example, I hate to bring this up because it just makes it seem like it's pulling too much from this, but it seems like your game is very Limbo-esque, and I really love Limbo because it is just one idea. It's just a kid trying to escape this island. That is it. And like nothing is added in that doesn't need to be there.
The interesting thing is I've never played that game, and I've only ever seen the visual style of that game loosely. So it's been very interesting when I get that comment, hey, your game looks a lot like Limbo, and I go like, well, I guess it does. Oddly enough.
Well, it's black and white, and with your visual
Yeah.
style, if you keep it the way the sketches are right now, is yours is a lot more, I guess, blobby, a lot more sketchy, a lot more, I guess, a higher contrast between the black and white. While Limbo is very much grayscale, it's kind of softer line work. I mean, yes, on a surface level, it does look like Limbo, but now I'm actually surprised you say you never played it because of that similarity.
Yeah. I think the contrast between the black and white kind of and the blobby sort of feeling of it kind of makes it the same uncertainty you'd feel when you're depressed, sort of like
Where everything's kind of
unmotivated.
hazed and blended together, and
Yeah. That's why like you can't see the characters' feet when they are on the edge of the cliff, or you can't really see any of their features beyond the arm when when they jump up.
so it's just
Sort of why they're featureless.
Oh, I get it because you're kind of sort of losing yourself within this haze. Like it's
Yeah.
not like you have your own identity. Oh,
Yeah, you sort of lose yourself to your own sadness, kind of in a way. I feel is what I'd want to try and emulate.
and speaking of that feeling, and going back to that, you must make a choice. It occurred to me earlier. Have you ever watched the anime series Neon Genesis Evangelion?
I have not, but I have heard a lot of mixed things about it. I have seen reviews of it, I've seen people talk about it, but I have not watched it.
Well, I think it would play very well into the mood you're trying to establish. To not go too far into spoiler territory with it, the show is, yes, it's a giant robot show where it's these giant robots fighting angels. But what it's really about is it's about this human dilemma called the Hedgehog's Dilemma, where it's people are trying to always get closer to each other and find some sort of intimacy and connection. However, much like a hedgehog, if they do get close to each other, they'll start poking each other with the spines. So because of that, everyone, like every character in the show, ends up with some sort of issues with connection, or with depression, or with dealing with others. And I think you could pull a lot from that, at least if you're trying to establish that sort of tone in your game. I'm not telling you to go out and just binge all the saddest media you can find, but I'm saying with that particular brand of depression, you might be able to pull something from Eva.
That definitely sounds like something I could possibly pull from. That would just be another thing where it's like, could I put a time sink into that?
Well,
Could.
in honesty, it's only about 26 episodes, so yes, it is a bit of a time sink, but it's not as bad as most other series.
Oh, that's not too bad, actually.
Yeah, it's like 26 episodes and a movie. And there's 3 other movies, but they're remakes, sort of. Like they remake the original story and then they kind of go off on its own thing. But with Eva, yeah, it's like 26 episodes and a movie. It is very doable.
I will definitely give it a look.
Yes, I'd say give it at least by episode 3 or 4 to see if it's your thing. But the really heavy stuff doesn't really happen until the back end of the series. That's the thing.
I think in anime I remembered watching where it wasn't focused on what I'm trying to do, but it's called Monster. And
I've
it's
heard very
sort
good
of-
things about that.
Oh yeah, it's great. My only kind of issue with it is sometimes it feels like it doesn't do anything in certain episodes, but other than that, it was really enjoyable to watch because it kind of comments on what it means to make the right decision in terms of morality, and touches a lot of like really complex subjects.
Now, that's the one about this doctor, correct? Like that's about the only thing I know about it. But what else? What else is the setting about it? Like, is it set in a certain time period? Is it like
set around the time period of World War II, from what I remember?
Okay.
It's never quite clear, but it definitely feels like World War II esque era, or at least I always felt like it was.
See, with that kind of description, dealing with morality and making the tough choices, I can imagine World War II is a very well. Actually, when I think about it, World War II probably not really wouldn't be the best setting because it, at least in American media, is usually depicted as a very black and white us versus them issue. Though I guess coming from a Japanese standpoint, it wasn't very clear cut.
Yeah, it definitely has a lot of gray areas where the characters are put in situations where there's not really exactly a right thing to do, where it's not very clear cut of who's really, there isn't really a good guy, I guess you could say, because almost every character is flawed in their own kind of unique way. Like, the doctor, although he saves a lot of people's lives, his major flaw is he's kind of a pushover in that he kind of sort of just goes with whatever everybody says, and then it ends up screwing him over in the long run.
Okay, you literally just described the protagonist of Evangelion, too. Like, literally, word for word.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, okay, because I know Monster is one of those series that is a sort of must-watch for, I guess, this isn't exactly the right word to use, hardcore otaku, but people who are really into the medium. Like, people who really want to sink their teeth in and get something really good out of it. So, hearing that from somebody makes me really want to watch it now, because I've seen it on, like, lists of, you must watch this show, or just top 10 gritty anime series or something, some bullshit Watch Mojo stuff.
Yeah.
But that does sound interesting, and that actually brings it up to this point. What other, besides video games, like inspiration, like do you pull from for this game? Like what else has inspired you to get started on this project?
A lot of it was kind of on a whim. I'm going to be dead honest with you. I kind of just thought in my head, wouldn't it be cool if I created this type of thing? And I sort of just went with whatever I had. So, how I started this project was, a while back, I kind of realized I had just art supplies lying around, and I just started drawing something. And I didn't really have a general goal with it. And then I ended up kind of creating this really haunting image of a, silhouette standing on the edge of a cliff. And I kind of then realized, well, wouldn't it be cool if I made a video game about multiple choices? And it sort of just kind of branched off from there. For other media inspirations that I can directly think of, besides the YouTuber that I've mentioned, Jordan Under, there hasn't been much, maybe like subconsciously from other shows I've watched that do have very dark themes. Something that I could say very similar in the surreal level would be Paranoia Agent. That has been...
That's another one I need to watch. Man, you have some good taste.
Yeah, I like to watch, just when I hear something is good, I'm like, well, let's see what this other person likes, and I kind of filtered out my taste and found good stuff. Okay,
but now you're saying, yeah. Didn't mean to interrupt you. You're saying you did Paranoia Agent, and what other bits of media?
I'm trying to think. I can't really think of anything immediately off the top of my head. I'm trying to think.
Well, it could be like movies, music, more games that we haven't mentioned.
Ooh, music. That's an interesting one, because I could say probably Broken Bells is a very inspirational band to me, even though it's not similar to what it is kind of, and what their themes are. Because probably if you notice through the playlist, there are a good handful of songs by them.
Yeah, I was actually looking at it right now because I saw. Well, a lot of it at the beginning is the Strokes, but the very first one you put on here was a. Well, actually, it wasn't the first one. I wasn't looking at the queue. Yeah, like the very first 8 or so tracks on this playlist that you made for the interview are Broken Bells, just straight up.
I straight up love this band to death. Because a lot of their songs are really depressing and have a lot of existential horror, or at least how I interpret them as just horrific to think about. Like The Ghost Inside is kind of about what I feel like it's about is this woman giving up her hopes and dreams because just without warning, and
Ooh.
it kind of just sacrifices everything and it doesn't really give much reward back.
Ooh.
And sort of what it's like to sacrifice humanity and being what it means to be alive. Or at least that's what I got from it.
Well, it seems like that track just really ties into the theme of what you're trying to make here, is that it's just that everything just comes crashing down and you're left picking up the pieces.
Definitely. That's kind of what I feel like Broken Bells is a lot of the times, is kind of what it's like to pick up to be completely, and I kind of always got this cool space vibe from them, but I always liked their style and I liked their music a lot.
I'm trying to think of what other inspirations. Like, I'm just trying to make suggestions that maybe you might be able to pull some more stuff from. I've heard Serial Experiments Lane might be up your alley when it comes to that
my
kind of tone.
god, I love that
So you've already seen it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. That is another really great one. I just loved its themes. I loved what it was trying to say, and it was really ahead of its time.
Because it talks about how we as a culture, or at least we as, I guess, even humanity, is just obsessed with media. Is that correct, or?
What I interpreted from it is what it means to... What does it mean to be alive? Because it sort of touches on the concept of consciousness without a body.
Oh, okay.
What does it kind of mean to be a human with the digital age, and kind of what does technology mean to us, and how important is it to us, to the point of where are we willing to sacrifice our humanity in exchange for technology? Or at least that's what I've always got.
So it's more similar to a cyberpunk story in a way.
Yeah, cyberpunk in a way, but it's kind of
like modern day.
It's like modern day at the time it was created.
Yeah, because that's just more cyberpunk theme rather than the actual setting.
It's almost like modern. It's almost like eerily close to how modern day media works, almost, in a way.
Yeah, because this is a series made in the 90s, right?
Yeah, but it was really like a lot of the ideas of just how people were connected and how the internet would affect the social structure, and just in general, it definitely felt like it knew what it was talking about when it like brought up a subject and kind of said it without saying anything. And I always love those kind of shows that say something without having to blatantly tell you what they're trying to tell you.
See, that's always good too. Well, and that's the thing with anime too, is that a lot of the times the themes are just very much like beat into your head. But with Serial Experiments Lane, it seemed like it was always very subtle. Like I've only ever really seen the intro, and the intro freaks me out because it just has this. And I can imagine it would be even worse, like in the '90s, where everybody had a CRT TV, where it's just like it had the girl, or at least whatever the character, like the girl character was, just kind of like peeping in through your TV. It's like kind of in the background, and like that seems terrifying to me. But
yeah, it's definitely like scary, but doesn't like try to be. It's horrifying in the way of how surreal it is.
It's like a. I'm trying to it seems like a very Twilight Zone esque kind of horror.
Sort of in a way, but I feel like Twilight Zone is more of like a moral less. It's always trying to teach a moral lesson.
Yeah,
At least
but
I felt like it was. But here it was kind of more like a neutral standpoint, or how I always saw it as. It took like a very neutral, like, this is how things are, and you can kind of take it how it is. You could say that these things are evil, but that's up to you to decide. Is it evil to sacrifice your body? Is it evil to kind of create your own identity and kind of lose yourself in the world? Or is it wrong for these things to be the way they are? And it asks those questions. It kind of made me ask those questions without really saying it directly, or at least I feel.
yeah, it's all tied into the themes of the characters themselves, what their actions are, and trying to think if there's any other like horror movie I can think of that pulls from that, because I know one movie that does the show not tell sort of theming, like it or what it's about is different from what it's literally showing on the screen. And really, the only one I can think of right now is The Thing, where the movie itself is literally about a body snatching alien, but the movie is about isolation and paranoia, like what paranoia can do to your fellow, like do to someone, and have it mistrust their fellow man.
I have not watched that one, interestingly enough.
It's one I will consistently recommend. I believe it is a masterpiece of a film. I mean, I don't think it relates too much to what you're trying to do with your game, but if you want an idea of like a masterclass in both horror and having a movie be about, like, actually having like a message without beating it over your head, like you're trying to, like you said that Serial Experiments Lane does, I think it would be worth your time.
I'll definitely give it a look when I have the chance. That sounds definitely something up my alley. Oh, no, one I just thought about. Hayana Bay Resume, I believe it was called. I'm definitely butchering that, but it's about these, I guess you'd call them angels, and it also kind of, it covers more about the themes about suicide, and
Oof.
it's really, really dark, but in a very subtle way, and a lot of the messages are implied, but it's sort of like, kind of like, what if there was an after story for those who had killed themselves, and what if there was nobody there to save them, and what that could imply, or what if somebody did come there to save them, and what would that be like? And it has all these really dark and kind of disturbing and saddening things, but it's all very implied and not like forced down your throat. It's definitely something I'd recommend checking out. And it's something that has inspired me.
Well, it seems like you're drawing a lot from that with your game in general, because I hate to say this, but depression and suicide seems to go hand in hand when it comes to media depictions or theming, almost, because sadly, I wouldn't say that's the end result for most cases. I don't think that's the case at all, but whenever suicide is brought up in the media, it's generally because the individual is very depressed or in a very dark place. And I don't know where I was going with this. I'm sorry, but but it seems like that would tie in to what you're trying to do with your game very well.
Yeah. That's almost kind of my problem. Media and mental illnesses, sometimes they will only really cover the base level of like the absolute, but I hope with my game that I can also kind of cover the gray areas along with, kind of show the spectrum.
Like really tackle not just like, oh, they're sad, but like tackle the root issues of what depression is.
Yeah. And kind of also, he saw that creature, and one of my plans has been to be kind of giving the player the option of relationships, acting back with perhaps a more metaphorical representation of loved ones or people who would generally care about those with depression, and how depression can affect those people and how those people can help, even if it's minimal, with those with depression. And I just hope to wide range and very surreal, bizarre, and kind of dreamlike way. Or at least that's what I'm trying to achieve in the end result.
See, what I'm thinking you could do with that is, if you want it to be a bit more metaphorical or be more representative, and this goes back to an idea I mentioned earlier, is that you could have these people or places or relationships be represented by various areas within the game. For example, if you foster a certain relationship, obviously that area could grow, expand, you'll get access to more stuff within the area, or it becomes a route for you to take later on. However, if you let it fester, or if you do something to actively harm the area, it could eventually just get cut off.
Yeah, that would definitely be something interesting, because in the very first area, which was what I've been animating, there is an option for the player to go back, and what they go back to is literally the embodiment of nothingness. Just a white blank area that has almost nothing in it, and the only text they see is "there's here, nothing else." And if the character fosters a potential relationship with one of the other characters, that to something else, maybe a different route, maybe a different place to go. There's just something there instead of nothing.
See, I really dig that, because that is very much, at least how I've heard in psychology classes, how it's supposed to feel for people with depression. And I apologize if I'm speaking out of line to anybody listening, but it seems like where you start your game is kind of where a lot of people will feel they end up. It's like, this is the only option I have. Everything behind me is nothing. I'm lost. Like, everything is just gone. It is pointless to continue on. But what I believe what you're trying to say with your game, where it starts, is that is not the case. There is something to move forward with. There is something to continue on from. Even if it doesn't seem like it, there will be something there eventually.
Yeah, that's definitely what I hope to bring, because beginning of my game, I intentionally wanted it to seem like it's the end. No other options, there's no turning back. Oh, there technically is, but it seems like there's no turning back. There's no other options, but there are, and you just have to look for them. You have to find it within yourself to kind of make the change, because nobody else is going to make the change for you, or at least that's what I hope to get across, is that you can bring a change and make your life for the better, regardless of how hopeless it seems.
This is a lot more uplifting than I anticipated it to be. Because, like, whenever I saw concepts for this, I thought it was just going to be, like, a very bleak, dark game. But, I mean, it seems like, yes, that's the aesthetic, but the overall message, like you're trying to say, is there is more to it. Like, this isn't the absolute end.
I wanted to take a big twist, because a lot of games try to get this really bleak and dark setting, everything bleak and dark, but I want to have a really optimistic contrast.
Oh, I apologize to those listening to the stream.
Message.
It seems like I'm having some internet connection issues. So, oh, sorry. Continue on.
I want my game the contrast. The contrast between hopelessness and hopefulness, and optimism, pessimism, depression, hopefulness, kind of.
To show that there is at least some sort of light within the darkness. As cliche as that sounds, to show that there is at least something.
Yeah.
Ooh. It seems like next time I'm going to have to actually reset my internet before this. Yeah. Ooh. Alright. I'm trying to think of what else might need to be covered during this. Because we've definitely talked at length about the game. We've gone about 45 minutes on that. That's great. Like I feel like I've definitely got a little bit more insight about your project or your pet project. Is there any way that people could I doubt you're really looking for help right now, but is there any way that people could get in contact in the future, or can follow progress in the game, or?
Well, if anybody is super interested, right now all I have is my Discord that I would probably...
Oh.
That's probably what I respond most to, is Hellhound number 3366, and that's probably what's going to stay for a good long while unless I randomly change my mind. So for right now, that is where you can find me if you are interested in the project or want to help out or just want to toss ideas around. I am totally open to that, and whatever you suggest, I would definitely appreciate.
Oh, great. All right, and just to wind down a bit, I'm just going to ask some just general questions, personality stuff. I asked Bed this last time, but what do you think your top 3 games would be, just in general? Because I think you've mentioned Silent Hill,
Top
and you've
3 games.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be like in any particular order or of any particular genre, but I'm just curious.
Interestingly enough, I love Silent Hill as a concept, but I've never played it. I have seen gameplay of it.
See, it's funny because it's the exact same thing for me.
It's like, I love the idea of it. It's almost same thing I feel with Lovecraft, where it's like, I love Lovecraft's writing, but I've only really read Cthulhu.
So not much like actual experience with it.
But not much actual experience. But with top games, right now it'd be, if it's inspirational games, it would be Nirai Nikki. It would be Silent Hill, just from its concept, and I guess technically the visual style of Limbo, even though I've never played it.
So it's 2 games you haven't played and 1 that you've played.
Yes.
Okay, well, how about games like you've actually played? Like, what do you enjoy playing? Like, what do you do?
What do I really enjoy playing? Top 1 would definitely be Slay the Spire. I love that game to death. Second game I'm sort of starting to get into is Wizards of Legend. I've been really enjoying that so far. And third game would be, I know this is going to sound real bad, but League of Legends.
Oh, that game absorbs everybody.
It's a complicated relationship between me and League of Legends, but through the arguments, occasionally I really enjoy playing that game for whatever bizarre reason.
I love the qualifier occasionally there.
Occasionally. But if for a non-complicated relationship, Darkest Dungeons. Oh, I love that game. Real dark, real...
That seems to be a real popular one among the pack right now. It seems like I cannot get away from games, and they just... Like, every time I go in, they're talking about Darkest Dungeon. So I feel like I should really play it.
You definitely should. It's a great game. Well, okay... A bit of forewarning, if you don't like really challenging games, you're going to absolutely hate it.
Oh, I'm going to die then.
This is like tough as nails, unforgiving, really the themes of the game are exactly how the gameplay is: oppressive, hard, and just creepy and hopeless in every sense of the word.
Ooh. I mean, it seems like I'd enjoy it from an aesthetic standpoint, but probably not so much for the gameplay.
Yeah, I don't know. With Darkest Dungeons, I feel like it's a game you're not supposed to enjoy, and as weird as that sounds. Like,
Oh,
you're
no. No,
you're
there's
not
definitely
supposed
games
to
out
have
there
a
like
good
that.
time.
Like, that's kind of the point, is it will kill you, both emotionally and in the game.
Pretty much. A runner-up is Dead Cells. I just like Souls-like games in general. Dark Souls.
I've heard about that one.
Souls, Bloodborne, stuff like that. I love. I
So,
love challenging games.
Was it you, or was it somebody else that saw in Games Row that was going on about Hollow Knight? Or no, I'm thinking.
I have never played Hollow Knight.
Okay, never mind. I'm thinking back to the one Packcast episode where Raccoon interviews Smonk, and Smonk goes on about Hollow Knight. So I've heard that one's very Souls-esque with a more of a Metroidvania take on it. And then if you want a real 2D like a Souls game, I've heard Salt and Sanctuary is really well made.
It is, but there are certain sections in the game where it feels like it's like there are certain boss fights where I'm like, did it really have to be this way? And there are certain areas that I just absolutely hate, but like in general I like the game. It's just one of those like I'm in the middle of it. That's how I feel anyways.
Well, alright. It looks like we're going to be closing down in just a moment here. We're getting close to the hour mark. I'm just going to go ahead and open up the chat, both Twitch, and I'm going to try to look for questions in Chill Chat too. Just general FAQ or Q&A questions. Feel free to fire it off. I'll pick about 4 or 5 while we continue to chat here and let those roll in. But I'm trying to think of anything else to really say. I mean, I really appreciate you being on, especially since this is like one of the first episodes that's actually going to be recorded and put it on YouTube. And then, what else? Oh, yes, and thanks to Kimmel, by the way, for this great background art of just a skeleton just in a fucking corn bowl, in like a snack bowl, and the new logo that I'm using. If anybody wants to make a logo or make background art, I'll gladly slot it in as the background art or anything else. So don't be afraid to DM that to me.
Yeah, I really liked that image for the skeleton chilling in the corn bowl.
It's great. It's great. And shout out to Finn for last week's, or the week before us, whenever that was, of just the Jedi Council room. It's not up this week. It's going to be up next week to get it back up there. But it's just, yeah, that's really hard to say. It looks like there's not really a whole lot of questions pouring in. So, it just be like that.
Well, I suppose since it's the end, a very weird shout out to Lord Bung's Twitter, because that's where I got this amazing profile picture.
It is
wrong.
Goddamn terrifying at points.
I love how awful this profile picture is. It's hilarious, awful, and terrifying, and it's why I've kept it like that for a very, very long time.
Yeah, I remember crawling around in the squad with the old old Toasty Fellas squad. It's just lurking around with that on there. But anyway, yeah, thank you for coming on, man.
Yeah, it's been great.
It's been great talking to you. Hopefully, I'll get this uploaded ASAP, and hopefully the internet connection issues earlier in the stream don't mess things up too bad. But yeah, this has been Sweet Talking with Saint Diabetes. Anything else you want to plug real fast, Hellhound, before we get going?
No, but this is Hickety Dickety Hellhoundy Downdy, and was great. Later.
Alright, peace out, man. And we'll be seeing you guys next week. And if you're listening on Friday, we'll be seeing you next Friday, I suppose, when the next video goes up. Alright, peace out.